Welcome to today's presentation. As you can see, the title is the data catalog, more than just metadata fields. And really the point that I want to make today is that I really like metadata is so much more than just a title of a data set or a description. It can be so much more than that, and that's what I want to show you today. Like, what else is possible with a data catalog? So today's agenda, you can see there are a lot of question marks. I hope I can give you a lot of answers as well. Just quickly, a common ground, maybe you've had these problems as well, you've experienced these things. Then quickly, just so we all have a shared understanding, what is a data catalog? Then a short introduction, who I am, who's the team, and what our mission is. Then I'll show you an example of our data catalog in Canton Basel-Stadt, and then show you what else we do with the data catalog. I'll show you what the next projects are, and then the kind of key takeaway message, which I think you might already guess what it is. So maybe you've also thought this, or maybe you've experienced this. You've probably thought in your firm or in your organization, your governmental office, you've wondered that if this data exists somewhere. Maybe you've had these dreams where you've thought, if I had this data and this data, combine them, we could have really interesting findings. Maybe you've also realized others collect exactly the same data as you, which can also be quite irritating because then there are different versions of this data. Also, often people actually don't even know what their own department, their own team, what data they have. Sometimes maybe if you work with data, you don't know exactly how the data was collected, which is quite relevant sometimes for your data analysis, to know if this variable actually really measures what you want to use for your analysis. Maybe you don't even know if it's up to date, the data. And maybe you're just really curious how your data gets reused or has been reused. Maybe can you show your hands if you've thought this before, if you've had these experiences? Okay, quite a lot. Cool. So these are kind of problems that the data catalog can solve, or can at least help with the experience. Very quickly, I think we're all kind of experts here. Well, what is a data catalog? We have to explain it a lot when we talk to people in the Canton of Basel-Stadt. What is it exactly? And I like to say it's like a reference book on data. I like the German word a lot, like a Nachschlagewerk, like a Duden. So you can see, what data exists. Very important, we always have to say it's metadata, it describes the data, because there's a lot of misunderstanding that when we first talk about the data catalog, people are always very, they don't really want to do it because they're always afraid that we are taking their data, and we always have to say metadata at least 3 times, and then they understand. So yeah, it's essentially data about data. Okay. So yeah, who am I? I'm Josephine Smith. I'm a scientific researcher at the Statistisches Amt Kanton Basel-Stadt. I work in the team DCC, Data Competence Center. My boss, Melanie Kolbe-Guyo, she's like the division manager of data governance and compliance. And she leads the DCC together with Jonas Biri, who you've all met, division manager of data engineering and AI. And you've also heard about Renato. He knows the data catalog really well in the back end. He knows what's possible technically, and if we have problems, he often has a solution. And like I said, what's our mission? We're kind of doing a roadshow through the Canton of Basel-Stadt. We're explaining to the people what is the data catalog, which is super because at the same time we can actually also introduce data governance. We can, teach them about it. We are also introducing these new roles like data owner, data steward, data custodian, cantonal data steward that come from the federal government. And I put it in brackets new because these roles obviously have always existed, but we're trying to label them so that people really have an awareness about what tasks they have when it comes to data. And of course, like the biggest mission we have is the once only principle. The goal is that we have the data only once somewhere in the canton, and that this department shares all its data with the other departments. So citizens in Basel-Stadt can give their data once to the canton, and then it gets shared among the departments. And we can only do that if we know who has what data. So this is an example I brought from our data catalog. This is what I think most people think is metadata. It's the title of the data set, it's a description, and it's all these fields like confidentiality, how up to date is it. And here we have an example of permits for doctors. They have a data set when it comes to that. But what I'm trying to say, it's so much more than that, a data catalog, because we're doing much more than that. So my favorite one is data lineage. In the data catalog, we can really show, track the journey of the data, where has it been collected, who else is using it, is it going into a data marketplace, a data pool or not. So we can really see nicely where the data flows. I got an example here. This is from the one I showed. So here we have the attributes. You can see here in yellow they have this GLN number, which is a global location number. It's like the ID number for all doctors. And this is how it looks like in the database. You can see it here again. And this is what the data steward told me in a conversation we had. He said, you know, we don't invent this number. It comes from the federal government. And I was like, okay, we need to definitely note that in the data catalog. So that's what I did. I then said, okay, this GLN number comes from 2 registries. Depends if you're a psychotherapist or a family doctor. And that comes from these registries. So basically, if there are, we know now that if there are changes in this number, it comes from the federal government. And if people have questions about this number, they won't bother this data steward. They'll go directly, hopefully, to the federal government. Another example that we have, which is actually not, there's like a missing puzzle still, because we work a lot with missing puzzles with the data catalog, but at least we have something. Also here we have an attribute that the data steward told me comes from our data marketplace in the canton. And so I did that. I said, okay, it looks like in a database like this, and it comes from the data marketplace like this. But the missing part is obviously, okay, where does it come from? Which office does it come from? But hopefully in some time we'll know from which department it comes. So that's number one, data lineage is what you can also do in the data catalog. What we also have is you can also calculate KPIs, because this is actually a real problem. Some people working don't actually remember how they calculated the KPI the year before, they forget. Or if there's personnel changes, people don't know how the person beforehand did it. And this is where the data catalog can also help. We had here a use case for transmitting diseases and monitoring. And this is a very easy one, of course. She just told me that it's a total of 3 different use cases. I still did it in the data catalog. You don't have to understand this. This is just all the technical attributes that were used for these 3 use cases for the total. Also here we have a nice graphic where you can see all the attributes that were used for the totals, and they first calculated for each quarter, and then when they have each quarter, they have a year. So just trying to show you here what's possible in a data catalog is to calculate KPIs. Another thing that we have is business object modeling. This might sound a bit weird when we talk about business and government, but we also have a business that we have in our daily activities, and what we're trying to do here is you can, in the data catalog, really explain what you mean with when you say, for example, building. You're trying to find the same language and trying to understand if you mean the same thing, because a lot of misunderstandings that happen is that you notice you're not talking about the same thing, but you think you are talking about the same thing. So, for example, this is from the team for geography information. They did this modeling. They have here the building, and they defined what building means to them. And they did all the relationships that they have with the building they modeled. So a building is obviously also a property. A building can have apartments, etc. And they did here like this, try to define exactly what they mean with building and what they mean with each attribute. Here too, you can see they gave the definition of the building. These are all attributes that a building can have, and they defined what, for example, EGIT is. So also people who start new in the team, they can look at this and then they quickly understand what the business is about. Then here, kind of a buzzword that gets used a lot is data spaces. You can also see it's a bit of work in progress. What we also want to do is build data spaces in Canton Basel-Stadt, and we actually already have one, also on building. I think it's 20 years old already. And what we want to do is we want to show which attributes, which codes all belong to this data space. And then if people want to know something about building, they can see all the assets that have to do with building. One data space could also be health or environment, etc. And then maybe something that you are also coming across more often is personal data. We have that in Canton Basel-Stadt, that more and more people want to know what data the government has on oneself, so what personal data. And obviously the canton is obligated to tell the citizen what they have. And of course this is massive, so I mean you have to go through the whole canton and ask each office, okay, you know, what do you have? And this is where the data catalog can really help, is you know, you can search for attributes and you can find, okay, surname, first name, and then you get a whole list of all the departments that have these attributes, and then you can quickly find the data. So here I did an example. I did surname and first name, and you can see here all the lists of all the data sets that have Vorname and Nachname in it. And then, like I also said, it's a super tool for data governance. We're telling people about data owners, data steward, and they're also starting to use the terms themselves as well, which is really nice. Also confronting people with their data is also very interesting. You see people are starting to think, oh yeah, actually I don't know how up to date it is, or you know, making sure that people protect the data, secure the data, that they just get a more awareness. And obviously many do that, but some small offices just, you know, maybe not so much. And just talking about the value of data, because that's also quite a big one. Some people don't really understand what else you could do with this data. And what's up next? We've got many more ideas what we can do with the data catalog. We also want to do an artificial intelligence registry. We're not sure if we want to do it in this data catalog, but it's an idea where we list all the algorithms and models that we use in the canton. Then list of services. So this is the Leistungsverzeichnis. So can we see, do we have data on the different services that the canton has, combine that. And then the big vision is that in the data catalog you can actually even like order data, like click on data that you want, and then it goes into like a basket, Warenkorb, like if you're on Galaxus or Zalando, and then you can order the data. Of course, you need to have Rechtsgrundlage. You need to prove why you're allowed to have this data, but that's kind of like the vision that we have. So yeah, my takeaway message for you is don't think of metadata just being a title description and Aktualisierungszyklus, so how up to date it is. It's so much more than that. You can do so many things with a data catalog.